It's not just a card. It's a way of life. It's access to a world of more. It's not just for dreamers. It's for achievers. Introducing the new UBA Platinum MasterCard, a premium card for those who want more out of life. The UBA Platinum MasterCard offers you an amazing array of perks such as up to 15% off your Avis car rental, exclusive benefits at top hotels, airlines and destinations. Visit a UBA branch near you and request your UBA Platinum MasterCard. UBA, Africa's global bank.
Okay, good morning to you once more, and welcome to the UBA Ghana Business Series. My name is Henry Nidotia. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this interesting session. We're going to be talking about business management and growth this morning, and I have the pleasure to welcome our guest for today. He's an entrepreneur and doing many amazing stuff. He went to the University of Professional Studies in Accra between 2009 and 2015, where he studied business administration and management. And while there and doing things in between there sometime and after, he also worked with the Africa Regent Hotel until in 2018 when he found his new lab. He got into CavemanWatches, doing Caveman. My guest this morning is Anthoyny Dzamefe, who is the CEO of CavemanWatches. Anthoyny, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Henry.
Okay, so very good to have you here, and it's a pleasure. So, tell us a bit about CavemanWatches. How did it all start? I mean, where did the dream come from?
CavemanWatches is the only watchmaking company in Ghana currently. It all started sometime 2015 when I was job hunting. I happened to chance upon selling watches by accident, and so from 2015 I started selling watches generally, but those were imported watches. So I did that for some time, and then 2018 I decided to start my own brand, CavemanWatches.
Okay, good. So, how has the journey been so far for you since you started the CavemanWatches business? How has it been?
Very difficult, as expected.
Hello, Tony. Okay, we seem to be having some challenge with the connection from Tony's end. We will get Tony back online, and then we'll continue the conversation. Tony, can you hear me? Hello, Tony, can you hear me? Okay, so you're on the UBA Ghana Business Series. This morning we're having a conversation with Anthoyny Dzamefe, who's the CEO of CavemanWatches. We're talking about business management and growth. And like we heard, CavemanWatches started in 2018 after he's been into selling of some watches previously. It is the only watchmaking machine company in Ghana today. And Tony is joining us. So, Tony, can you hear me?
Henry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes. So, how's the journey been for you so far since you started in 2018?
Yeah, it's been very difficult, as expected. I think I anticipated all the difficulties. So when they come, it's normal because I've anticipated them. So it has been ups and downs, but as expected.
Okay, so with your experience, what would you say is the key thing when it comes to management in business, particularly for young entrepreneurs who are venturing out into their own businesses? What for you is the key thing when it comes to managing a business?
Am I on?
Yes, you are on. Yes, Anthony, you're on. Hello, Anthony.
Yeah, am I on now? Are we good?
Yes, you're on. You're on. We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Let's take it. Please take the question. Give me the question again.
So yes, I was just asking. So, in your view, what is the key thing when it comes to management for young businesses, or people who are setting up their new business and venturing into the whole world of entrepreneurship afresh? What for you is the key thing when it comes to management of a business?
What I have come to realize is the importance of a very efficient structure. Putting a very proper structure in place has happened to be the key factor for me in managing my business. And when I'm talking about structure, I want businesses to take their time to draw the structure of their companies very well and put the right people in the right structural development of the business. Emphasizing on overall strategy of business, leadership, emphasizing on human resource management, operations, and also most importantly, to make sure that we are being efficient. Efficiency is very key for me when it comes to managing a business, making sure that we are getting the most out of the limited resources that we have. But most importantly, the structure overall is very important.
Okay, so is there any particular structure you would like to recommend for us to see? We see the situation where many people in Ghana tend to depend on family and friends, and we don't tend to put in place the right mechanisms or structure for the business because of the relationship we have with them. What would be your recommendation when it comes to putting a structure in place? And considering that we may not have all the budgets to hire the professionals to help us run the business, what would be your recommendations to dealing with this?
Personally, I don't recommend working with friends and family that much. If you can afford to avoid it, in my experience, I have always avoided it because most of the times the familiarity begins to blur where the lines are drawn. I have always tried to avoid it. I do understand that maybe because of the economy we are operating in and the finances involved, people are not able to hire the right people into their structures. But then again, we should bear in mind that it is actually more expensive to put the wrong people into our structure than putting the right people there. Putting the right people into the structure will be expensive, but in the long run, it becomes more cost efficient compared to putting the wrong people into the structures. And this seems to happen very easily because usually these wrong people come at very affordable rates or charges. So naturally, we tend to go in for the most affordable options, which in most cases are the bad ones for us. So I want us to sacrifice a little more capital in employing the right people into our structures.
Okay, so Tony, do you think that there's a Ghanaian problem? I was listening to a leadership seminar some time ago with Edward Defa of Fidelity Bank, who mentioned that from the inception of the bank to date, he's never hired any family member who works in Fidelity Bank. He's just brought in professionals who can run the business and are helping right. Is this a Ghanaian thing, or from your experience, have you seen or read about this in other parts of Africa?
What I actually believe in is that it is every living thing's primary instinct to survive and be comfortable. I stopped blaming people for some sort of attitudes at work. It's human nature that people tend to want to be comfortable as much as they can. So you need to be aware that you are going to have to fight that human nature of your workers. because in their default state, they might lean towards comfort and relaxation. So that's one thing I think generally we'll have to deal with, whoever you are dealing with. And it's a more difficult issue when you have to put very restrictive measures against family members or very good friends, because usually the friction might happen. So I don't think it's a Ghanaian problem generally. I think once we are dealing with human beings, and human beings have the primary instinct of self-comfort, this is something that we would face generally, not only in Ghana or Africa.
How have you managed this? I mean, you've been running this since 2018, and you are making, a lot of ways. We've seen or heard about all the things you've done with CavemanWatches. How have you managed the issue of the structure? This will be the last one. We'll move on to other parts of the conversation.
Okay, so I decided to invest a lot more into my structure, which usually comes as a very difficult decision, because then you'd have to part way with a lot more money than you would have loved to. So I decided sometime last year to invest into structure properly, to employ the right people, pay the right amounts, and see the difference. And I had seen a very clear difference as compared to employing the wrong people or the more affordable options just to save more money. So yes, I decided to be more generous, to invest a little more into my structure. I got the right people into the right departments, and then I had seen a lot more self-sustainability for the business.
Okay, thank you. So let's talk about financial management for business and then the young businesses. I mean, you started off by selling watches, and you definitely need some capital, be it debt or equity. What in your view would be the best model for young businesses or business in the SME center to secure funding, and how do they manage their financial resources for better returns in yield?
Okay, when it comes to funding, I happen to start my business with 50 Ghana cedis.
Wow, 50, you mean 50 Ghana cedis?
Yes, I started my business with 50 cedis.
Started.
Yes.
And how much is the business worth today?
We make hundreds of thousands.
Wow. So tell us the story. I mean, 50 Ghana cedis, how has it, what has been the path in managing the financial resources to ensure that you can grow from 50 cedis to the hundreds of thousands of Ghana cedis?
Okay. So what I've identified is that there are two directions that the businessman must be prepared to take. You are either building a business to make money, or you're building a business to build a brand. And these two directions require very different methods of operation. From the very beginning, I came in to build a brand, not to make money technically. So when you come in with the mindset that you are in to build a brand, I think you should be a little more willing and ready to let go of money, to plow back more money than the person who is in to make money. If you are in to make money, by default, you tend to hoard more money. You don't want to let it go, because that's the purpose why you are running the business, to make money. But I came in with a very generous approach that I'm here to build a brand, and I had been more willing to let go of resources, money in that regard, to build a brand. So yes, I only happened to buy a wristwatch that I wanted to use for myself, and then I took a picture of the watch, and somebody saw the picture and showed interest. And then same watches, and I sold them, and I bought 3 more, and I sold them, and I bought 4, and it kept going that way. That's how I started my entire journey, 50 cedis, and then plowing back. So I had always been more willing to plow back almost everything that I made because I was in to build a brand, not to hoard money.
Wow, that's a very interesting story there, Anthony, and we'll say congratulations to you here from UBA being one of your partners. So, Anthony,
thank you very much.
What has been the challenge for you in running, or some of the challenges that you have encountered in running CavemanWatches? Hello, Tony, did you hear me? So if you can hear me,
Hello, Henry, you may have to take that again.
Yes, I'm asking you to share what some of the challenges that you have encountered in running CavemanWatches over the years.
Hello.
Yes, what has been some
Henry,
of the challenges
to take that again?
What has been some of the challenges you have encountered in running the business?
A lot of challenges. I mean, the most prevailing one is always having to deal with human resource. Dealing with human resource has been the biggest challenge, I believe, because I mean, your workers are the ones who are going to carry the dream. We are only the bearers of the dream, trying to steer the car which way it should go. But the employees are the ones who are going to carry the brand to its apex. So dealing with human resource has been a very huge challenge. Like I mentioned, by default, every human being's instinct is to be relaxed and be comfortable. So you have to find a very good way to, make sure you get the best out of your workers. And one thing that I have also identified is that it's very important to prioritize the self-development of your employees, because the business can only go as far as the employees themselves get in terms of their personal development. So yes, we are in here to make sure the brand goes very far, but I place very key importance on how the employees themselves develop their potential. One of the reasons why I resigned from my last job was that I didn't feel my potentials were being utilized, or I didn't feel like I was growing or I was developing as a person. So I make sure that I pay attention to the development of all my workers. So that has been a challenge. The watch industry relies very heavily on attention to detail and perfection. It is the key importance when it comes to the watch industry. Perfection is very surgical work. And I happen to, encounter different types of workers, and I wouldn't boast very much that we are very detailed people or perfection-oriented people as Ghanaians generally. So that has been a challenge, finding like-minded people who pay attention to detail as I would recommend.
Okay, so thank you very much, Tony. So what are some of the key things when it comes to growth for our business? Started off 50 cities, we're doing the hundreds of thousands today, starting off from retailing into now going to manufacturing. How should people or businesses manage growth and their growth path? So, Tony, if you can hear me, I'm asking you, what are the key things to do for business to grow or to be able to manage the growth path? What are the steps they need to put?
Hello, Henry.
Hello, yes, if you can hear me, I'm asking, what are the things?
Hello, Henry. I think I lost you there briefly.
Okay, so I'm asking, what are the things that SMEs can do to ensure growth of their businesses, so that when they start off, just as you started off with 50 Ghana cedis from retailing to becoming a manufacturer, what should they do to ensure that they can grow their
Henry,
businesses?
I think I lost you briefly.
Whoa. network not being a good friend to us this morning. So, Tony, what I'm asking of is what your recommendation would be for growth of businesses. How can businesses
Hello, Henry.
grow?
I lost you briefly. Can you take the question again?
Oh, all right. So, Tony, what I'm asking is on business growth and how businesses can grow or entrepreneurs can grow their business. Such that so start from little beginnings when they begin the business and they start off. What things should they put in place to ensure that they can grow their businesses?
Okay, thank you, Henry. You can hear me clearly, right?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Yes, so in terms of growth, I want every business to be very in touch with the focus, the primary target of the business. Usually, when the priority of the business is to build a brand and become a global brand, then the success of such a business can only be determined by time. As at now, I'm only 3 years into the business, and my priority is to build a global brand. So I can only judge the success of my business based on the endurance and how I survive the test of time. So yes, I want businesses to break down their objectives into very feasible and achievable tasks. I have seen too many people with very ambiguous and vague objectives for their businesses, and such people hardly ever accomplish anything. So what I did was to break down my objectives into very feasible and short-term targets. So to ensure growth of business, I would want every business person to have this mindset to focus on the most simple objectives, break them down into the most achievable targets, so we can rate our success by how quickly we achieve one target after the other. And also to put the emphasis on building a brand more than just coming into the business terrain to make money out of it. Because making money out of a business is not very reliable. But when you build a brand, that brand is what is going to outlive you for the next generations. So prioritizing building a brand will be very, very important. And also emphasizing on structure, creating the right structure and putting the right people into the structure. And also setting very simple and achievable targets for your business, so that after every short period, you can see very clearly what the business has achieved. And most importantly, there's a very huge tendency for people to get relaxed. So after after some time, you need to sit back and review the targets for the business and re-strategize when there is a need to. So yes, I would urge people not to lose focus of the primary objective of the business. You have to read it to me. So not to lose focus of the primary objective of the business, not to set ambiguous or vague targets for the business. And keep in mind that we are in here to build a brand that would live beyond us.
Okay, thank you very much, Tony. So now, even before I go on to my next question for you, I've got Precious Keys, who is joining us online, who says, before you started, did you think that you were going to succeed in your business? And if yes, could you explain what made you sure that you could succeed in your business? Precious Keys, questions for you.
Okay, I was very sure that I was going to succeed in this business because there was one very important stage that I went through before I decided to resign from my job. And this is the most important stage in the life of any business person, as I would recommend. I call it the search. It's the duration, the period in which you have to sit back, take a pen and paper, and reanalyze your strengths and your weaknesses. I had been working in the corporate sector for some time, and I could observe that I wasn't fitting in very properly. So I realized I had to search for my real potential very specifically, and I did that. So I realized that I had the attributes that it required to run a business. The resilience, risk-taking, a lot of attributes that it requires to run a very successful business. I identified that I had them. So I was well aware that this was the only path for me to take. So from the very beginning, I did not have any doubts that I was going to succeed in this terrain.
So my next question to you is, what's the role of your personal network in managing the growth of your business? Is it important, the people that you know, your network, is it important at all in growing your business?
Networking is very crucial. I mean, I have benefited so much from networking. I have benefited so much, especially in having a mentor. You know, a lot of bad things I was able to avoid was due to the fact that I had mentors who guided me in the right direction, who gave me advice. So networking has been very, very crucial to me. I would urge a lot of business people to pay more attention to who they have in their circle. Personally, I only keep people who motivate or grow me and my business around me. I'm either helping somebody in the same regard by growing them or directing their businesses for them, or I don't entertain the people at all. So yes, networking has been very crucial. Getting a mentor, being a mentor to other people, and also learning from veteran business people, from their mistakes and what I have to avoid. So yes, a lot of my success depends hugely on networking.
Okay, Tony, so you speak of mentorship and mentoring, and it's a key area for us in this conversation as well. I do know that you mentioned that you've also supported other people in mentoring and this. But Anthoyny, what's the role of education? My question on education is not just as it relates to the academics, but also what you've spoken about mentorship, participating in seminars and webinars and training sections and even formal education. How are these important to help you to understand the process of business management and growth?
Okay, thank you, Henry. Let me take you from the formal education aspect. Some time back, I was going through my books from the university, and I had these books that I usually write into when I'm preparing for my examinations. And I happened to chance upon some of those books. And I took some time to read the things I had written into the book. And trust me, if not for the fact that they were written in my handwriting, I would have denied that I ever wrote them. This is just to show you how our educational system has been, that I realized I was studying to pass examinations, but I could hardly sit back and identify a lot of things that I apply today that I can confidently say I learned from school. I believe that the education system here is very theoretical. We don't get hands-on, we don't get to practice a lot. So in terms of education, I have benefited more from what I learned on the internet. And then in terms of mentorship, I have benefited more from what I learned from artisans. From the beginning of my journey, I had approached even shoemakers to learn leather crafts, because I had to learn how to make the leather straps of my own watches. I approached the veteran watch repairers by the roadside to learn watch repairs and be able to comprehend how watches were made and how they work. So education generally, I have learned more out of the classroom in terms of what I apply in my day-to-day operation aspects of my business. But not to undermine entirely the education system system in Ghana or in Africa, but I would say that it serves a different purpose. I believe that the education system serves the purpose of networking and discipline. But when it comes to what I do hands-on in my business, I didn't learn that from school. I learned it more by being mentored by artisans locally.
Okay, Tony. So, I mean, I've learning from your artisans and the value of your network and all. Who are your customers? Do you know your customers and what do they want?
Okay, so I started my entire watch business in 2015. It took me 3 years to be finally ready to introduce my own brand. So the whole 3 years, I had used that period to gain experience, to gain a lot of intel regarding the general watch industry. And I used that 3 years to gather clientele database. So I was the go-to guy generally for wristwatches. So when I started my own brand, it made it very easy for me to hit the ground running, because I was not now coming to look for new customers. I was already an established face in wristwatches. So yes, my customers are the average Ghanaian and the high income Ghanaians as well. But I try to make watches available for every type of budget. So we have watches as low as $70, let me say 350 cedis, going upwards into whatever amount you can imagine. We've gone into 30,000 cedis and above. So yes, I try to have something for every budget, every type of Ghanaian.
Okay, so thank you, Tony. Now, what about marketing? How do you, expose your business to your customers? Young business started up, and we've spoken about the financial management issues and all. How do you market your business to your customers? And does digital marketing or online marketing play any role at all as you do this?
Hello, Henry. I'll be glad if you can take that again.
Yes, I was asking, how do you market your watches, and what are you doing in the online marketing space or digital marketing to push your watches as well?
Okay, so when it comes to marketing, in my industry, imagery is very important. Because I am actually competing against global companies, very global giants. So I don't take lightly the quality of my imagery. I have to invest more into my commercials by making sure that I'm producing commercials that can rub shoulders with these global giants. We take social media very seriously. Our Instagram, our Facebook, we have a website. And I also use influencers. Yes, the use of key influencers has always been old but gold, I would say. And also being careful in terms of brand reputation to do my research properly on the influencers that I engage, because that's one key mistake that companies do, not investigating properly before engaging influencers about their backgrounds, their personal backgrounds, because their personal brands will rub off yours. So yes, I take brand influencing very seriously. We have happened to benefit a lot from that, from people like Akon, who have thrown their weight behind the Caveman brand. I make use of billboards a lot. I make sure to place very eye-catching imagery on billboards for a lot of local attention. We've also been lucky enough to have the New York Times profiling us, and that also gave us a very huge international mileage. So yes, my marketing, I take imagery very important. I invest a lot more into producing top quality commercials and making use of social media, making sure our website is well structured, that people globally can place orders. I had partnered with DHL to make sure that we don't have problems with delivery to our international customers. Yes, so those are some of the key steps that I take in terms of my marketing and how to position my brand.
Okay, thank you. Tony, do your employees share the vision of CavemanWatches?
I believe so, yes. I make sure that I engage my employees as much as possible in the direction of the business, the vision of the business. Where possible, if there's an award night, I make sure that we are not only they are not only working, but they are also available to accompany me to pick an award or two when possible. So we all feel that we are part of the work and we are part of the victory collectively. So yes, to a very large extent, I believe my workers share the dream and the vision.
I mean, one question that somebody said to me, his name is Edem. Edem asked me that.
Hello, Henry, am I on?
Yes, you're on. I can hear you. Can you hear me? One question that Edem sent for me to ask is, what is the impact of phones or digital phones on the watch business?
Hello, Henry, am I on?
Yes, you are on. Can you hear me?
Hello, Henry, I can hear you now. Did you get all my answers, or should I take that answer?
I got your answer, and my next question, which Adam says I should ask you, is what is the impact of phones on the watch business in Ghana today?
I think Adam is probably asking that question with regards to something I hear all the time. The customer would always ask that I can watch my time, I can see my time on the phone. Why do I need to buy a wristwatch? But I've always said that there are different reasons why people buy wristwatches. There are actually 3 different types of wristwatch buyers. One person buys wristwatches as a form of investment or stock. This is usually a typical watch collector who buys limited editions of watches, knowing that over time the value of these watches will appreciate, and they tend to auction these watches later. That's one type of a watch buyer. Another type of a watch buyer is the person who is in to buy the watch for the fashionality purpose of it, how he dresses, how she dresses with the watch to complement her fashion sense. So yes, as much as the watch being a time-telling device, it serves these purposes. As I mentioned, firstly, somebody who is investing into watches as a watch collector with the prime aim of reselling it eventually to make more profit. Then we have the buyer who buys the watches for the sake of fashionality. And then we have the third caliber of people who buy the watches for functionality. Typically, we have the sports people who would buy a diver watch, for example. You will not be able to dive, to swim with your phone in most cases. So that would not substitute the need of having a diver watch. So yes, I mean, generally, I do get that question a lot, that people would ask me, if I can tell the time on my phone, why do I need to buy a watch? But when you look at these 3 different types of watch buyers, you would agree that apart from just time telling, there are these 3 core reasons why people would buy watches.
Okay, that's beautiful and excellent. So my next question really is to do with competition. You mentioned that you are competing with global brands and all of that. Do you understand what global or what competition is doing, and what's the trend when it comes to watches? What are the new trends? What's happening? What's competition doing as well?
Yeah, I understand very well what the trend is. I've always kept a very keen eye on the global market. I study the competitive market inside out. I know how these watches had been made. And I believe I have a very strong competitive advantage over most of these brands because, especially when I was importing and selling all these brands, I realized that a lot of them were not even made with our African conditions in mind, having to do with the type of metals that they use for their watches. In some colder countries, the metals would react differently. When you bring them here into the African weather, they would react differently. And I know the effect it has on time accuracy in our African condition. So yes, I believe I had been a repairer of watches for some time. So I took that time to identify the core mistakes that these watches had, which was able to guide me in designing my watches to avoid these mistakes and these problems. So yes, I had studied the market very well. I know the trends. Generally speaking, there has been a very huge wave in the direction of smart watches. And it's a direction that we are looking to develop. I have been engaging some very key creatives locally. So we have a round table. We are into design procedures to see how we can dive into the smartwatch industry.
Okay, so Anthony, what's the plan for CavemanWatches? I mean, 3 years now you've done and gone global, working, selling, doing deliveries out of the country to other places. What's the plan for this business in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, 20 years? Where do we see CavemanWatches?
We want to have CavemanWatches becoming the household name, especially in the African community. We want to be able to expand so much that we can provide a lot of employment within the African community to very significantly contribute to the improvement of the GDP of our economies. We want to be able to send our message out there. I think this brand for me means more than just watches. It's an indication, an embodiment of the reality for me that anything that we challenge in Africa, we can achieve. So the brand means more than just the product. It's an embodiment of this message to inspire the next person, the African, that we should be able to be confident enough to challenge the status quo, to be able to have that belief that we can also produce products that can compete globally. So in the few years to come, we wish to be a global brand. We wish to play a huge part in the development of the African community in terms of employment, in terms of engaging more in our CSR aspects, and also impacting the lives around us, which is a direction we have recently taken by dedicating some of our watch models to raising revenue, to drilling boreholes and providing portable drinking water in the less deprived communities. We are looking to, in the next few years, move that beyond Ghanaian borders and start providing portable drinking water in the neighboring African countries.
Wow, beautiful. So what's the next target market for Caveman? What products are you looking at giving to these people? I heard you talk about the fact that you have $70 range of watches and the rest, but are we looking at new markets, the tertiary institution students, people that we can, new markets to go to, and what products are we looking at giving to these new markets?
I think the next market that we are going to play a very strong role in might be the Nigerian market. Thanks to endorsement from people like Don Jazzy, we have been able to gain some significant recognition in Nigeria. We do have a fair share of Nigerian clients, and it will be very ideal for us to establish presence in the Nigerian market. We are also looking at South Africa, looking at other African countries. So very soon, in the very short term, we'll start branching out of Ghana very actively. Another key area that I'm very interested in exploring is the possibility of making watches for the visually impaired. It has been on my mind for some time. It has been on the table for discussion. We are looking to build watches for the visually impaired, and that will be in Ghana and beyond Ghana.
Okay, so Tony, Belinda has a question for you. Belinda's question is very, very simple. Belinda is asking, where do you source your raw materials from?
Okay, so we break down the watch components into different elements, and then we look at which we can manufacture ourselves and which we would have to outsource. From the very beginning, I used to outsource about 80% of the materials locally. So I would move from factory to factory locally, and then they make the components for me. I bring the components back onto my table for assembly, and I make about 20% of them myself. But as time went on, we're able to make more money and plow this money back into purchasing of this machinery. So we have moved significantly from making about 20% of our components to now making about 80% of our components. So yes, we outsource some of the components locally, and then a few parts of the movement that we cannot make ourselves at the moment, we tend to get from Japan, Singapore mostly, and sometimes a few parts from China. But very predominantly, we get our parts from Singapore, Singapore, and what did I even mention right now?
Japan.
Yes. When it comes to batteries and some other movements, engine components, yeah.
Okay, Yvonne also has a question for you. Yvonne's question is, as of every business, there'll be some customer complaints. So what are some of the complaints that you have received from customers, and what do you do to resolve them to keep your customers happy?
I think initially we used to deal with some delivery related complaints, which we have drastically taken steps to curb. And also, the more the business expands and you're not able to oversee everything yourself, I think these loopholes would always happen once in a while. But yes, we have a very currently we've employed somebody. When I'm talking about structures, I found the need to employ somebody whose job is specifically quality control. So that person becomes the final eye, the person to inspect every aspect of the product before the product leaves the shop to be delivered to the customer. So yeah, in the bearing in mind the importance of structure, we have currently employed somebody to ensure quality of the product. We had complaints regarding delivery. We used to have complaints once in a while about leather straps. We had some issues with the leather straps that we have drastically improved upon. We put new measures, bought new machinery. So yes, it used to be delivery related and leather strap related, but we have taken care of those.
Back to my questions now. You mentioned that you're looking into. Okay, before I go to my question, there's also a question. The person didn't identify themselves. You saw all the risks talking of competitors and obsolete, but you still went for it. What motivated you to do this? What drove you to get this done?
Okay, first of all, I think the motivation, as I said earlier, was because I had done my search and I identified my personal attributes. And I could tell that I could confidently tell that I had the trait of that resilience. I was a risk taker. I always took risk knowing the possible negative outcomes, and I had been ready to deal with them. Even, I mean, at a very key stage, I even had my mother, who was not very much in favor of what I was doing, because I was a graduate at the time and I was hawking wristwatches at car parks and on the streets and people's offices. So, I mean, it was very natural for even my mother to question that. But me being a risk taker, I knew the possible outcomes. I knew what the negative outcome could be, and I gave myself time. I gave myself a year that I was going to push this agenda very strongly for a year. And at the end of the year, I will sit down and appraise myself and see whether it had worked or hadn't worked. So I was ready to deal with losing a year of my time, which I think I could. I thought I could handle. That if it didn't go well in a year, I'll do something else. So yes, being well aware of the negative possible effects and being very prepared to handle it if it happened. It put me in a very stable mental state to take the risk even at that time. Hello, Henry. I think your mic is muted. I can see your lips moving, but I cannot hear anything.
Yeah, one of the things with technology happens. So, I mean, you spoke about venturing to new markets and you mentioned Nigeria particularly and all of that. My question to you, Tony, is that do you have enough employees who can help you to identify the opportunities in these areas and help you to capture the growth opportunities in Nigeria and other places as well?
Yeah, right now we are still a new business. I like to keep reminding everybody, 3 years, I think we are fairly new. So we have a decent number of employees to be able to handle that. And we are constantly expanding, improving. We've been able to engage locals in these other countries that I mentioned and that you mentioned. We have locals on the ground who would act as representatives and as agents for us. So I don't think we have much of a challenge when it comes to the human resource to be able to manage this expansion. We can handle that, yes.
Okay, so Kenneth Aidan, who is watching us and also a product of your alma mater, says that Jose Owusu, the first Deputy Speaker of Parliament, has said that youth of today are being miseducated. What's your view on that? Do you corroborate this assertion? And if so, what would you advise? What advice will you give to the young graduates who are unemployed?
I think a lot of the miscommunication started from our basic school, from our JSS and all that. It's a very broad topic, but I do share the same sentiments about the miseducation part. And I think the education system, the whole curriculum should be taken a very critical look at. And I also do believe that the young graduates needs a lot of direction, education, and mentorship. And probably the government would have to play a key part in this to put in measures in place to make this mentorship and directions available to people who seek them. So yes, mentorship has really helped me. And when it comes to the miseducation, I actually think a lot of it comes from the entrepreneurs themselves, because usually I feel very bad for somebody who is deciding to start doing his own business based on what he listens to the entrepreneurs say on radio or on TV. Because usually there are things that happen behind the curtains that the entrepreneur is not allowed to say on TV or on radio interviews. So usually the public, that graduate who is making his decision to become a business person based on what he hears from business people say on interviews would be really misguided. So it's very important that you get in touch with a mentor who will tell you what the actual challenges behind the curtains are, so you don't have a very myopic perception about it and hop into this terrain very misguidedly.
All right, thank you. I've got a question from Lisa, and the question is very, very simple. Do you think God played a role in your business?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Yes, I, as a believer and as a Christian, I always acknowledge God in everything that I do. So yes, I believe God played a huge role in my business. I believe whatever attributes that I have that have been able to keep me running my business successfully were attributes that I got from God, being my creator as a believer that I am. So yes, I attribute a lot of my success to my creation and my creator.
Okay, all too soon, we're coming to the end, and like they say, as the game gets tough, as we get exciting, the night before the travelers. Tony, where can we find you? Where can we find CavemanWatches? If we want to get in touch with you, what will be the contact? How do we get in touch with you?
Our primary platform would be our website, CavemanWatches.com. We have a well-structured website. We are currently still restructuring our website to fit the international market more efficiently. So we are on CavemanWatches.com. Our social media handles: Facebook is CavemanWatches, Instagram is CavemanWatchesGH, and Twitter is CavemanWatches. So we are very active online. We happened to lose our social media platforms not too long ago, but we are rebuilding. So would appreciate everybody to follow us and be very active on our social media platforms. So yes, Instagram, CavemanWatchesGH, Facebook, CavemanWatches, and Twitter, CavemanWatches. But most predominantly, we pay a lot of attention to the website, which is CavemanWatches.com.
So what will be your final words of advice or piece of advice to young graduates, entrepreneurs out there, SME space people, on managing their businesses and helping them to grow?
Okay, so in a nutshell, I would urge everybody who has an interest in business to first of all do their search. This is very important to me, to sit down and search and identify your real strengths and your weaknesses, and know how to tailor your business around that. Different types of businesses require different levels of stress, different levels of endurance. If you are deciding to be a business person, please do your search and know the levels of endurance and stress that you can handle before deciding which kind of business to do. I would want you to also focus on building a brand more than just being in business to make money, because being in business to make money is not very, it's not a generational kind of business. So let's be in it to build a brand, most importantly, and the brand will bring money back. And thirdly, I would want business people to also know that it is very crucial to invest into building a structure. Unless you have a very solid structure, you would realize you are working very hard, but you would not be able to create a self-sustaining business. So doing your search, be ready to build a brand, which means that you will be a little more generous, employing back more percentages of your profit into your business, and then also to invest a lot into your structure. Please make sure to also reach out, find a mentor who would be able to tell you very practical truths and realities about the business terrain. And that would really help you, because it has helped me myself a lot.
Yeah, thank you. So you heard three things from Anthony. I said final, but let me slip this in from Stephen, who would like you to consider putting all your ideas and your challenges together in a book so that he and others can read from to help them grow. Is it something that you would consider?
Yeah. My first book is actually being printed as we speak. I'm looking to launch this book on the 12th of December, hopefully, by His grace. So yes, I have put a lot of these experiences into a book, and let's just keep expecting on the 12th of December that this book will be launched successfully.
Right, sure. So Stephen, there you go. So first one already coming up, and I'm sure first of many more to come. I'd like to say a very big thank you to Anthoyny Dzamefe, who is CEO of CavemanWatches, for taking time off your schedule to be with us this morning. I trust that you've learned a thing or two to apply to your business. And as we do at the UBA, we continue to empower businesses and help them to grow. I'd like to send a special invitation to you, SMEs out there, wherever you are, to join us tomorrow at the Accra City Hall near the Octagon, the AMA office, where we're going to have our SME capacity building seminar and workshop. We have excellent resource persons for you. We're going to talk about trade. We'll talk about foreign business in terms of doing your transfers. We're going to talk about treasury business, forex. We're going to talk to you about cards. We have lots of partners who are going to join us on these sessions tomorrow. So the time is 10 a.m. tomorrow at the Accra City Hall, the AMA office. Join us and learn a thing or two. Let's network. Let's find opportunities that can help our business to grow. And I trust that you will have a very great session. So thank you all for joining us this morning, and keep watching this space. UBA Ghana will be bringing you more business series, and watch out for our next guest who is going to grace our platform. It's been nice having you, Tony.
Thank you very much, Henry.
And to our audience that joined us online, we say thank you for joining us. For those who sent in their questions, we thank you for being with us, and we hope that you would have a very good and productive day. Thank you, and bye-bye.